I actually wanted to start with something. It sucks that Josh isn't here because if you remember, we tried to record last week, right? And your connection was all messed up. But I asked Josh a really important question, which is if so, like, let's say Josh had like a disease, like a cancer or something, he was going to die in a few months. And the only cure was if a bunch of Chinese businessmen jizzed on his face, Bukkake style. And there's no way to artificially, the science has done everything. You can't artificially reproduce this. You have to sit down and everyone like jacks off on your face, Bukkake style. And that's the only way that you're going to beat
Like
this
in the movie
cancer.
Caligula at the beginning of the movie.
I haven't seen it, but I'll take your word for it that that's what happens. But yes, something like that, I'm sure. And he said, even if it meant seeing his own son's graduation, he wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I really wanted to talk him into it because I don't think it'd be that bad. Mark, your thoughts. Would you do it? And do you think we can talk him into it?
I mean, I,
This is
yeah,
curing
you
your
don't even
cancer.
have to talk me into it, bro.
This is. I talked
Did you
myself
say
into
they were
that
hot?
last
Did
Thursday.
you say they were hot Chinese businessmen?
No, they're not attractive. That's part of the cure. Is if they're too attractive, the semen doesn't work and it doesn't cure you. You might buy yourself a few months, but unless they're unattractive, you're not gonna cure.
Man,
Sorry, man. I don't make the rules. This is just how science works. It's fucked
yeah,
up,
of
dude.
course.
Fucked up world. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he's my godson, and I want to see him graduate. He's not even, so we can give Josh a little bit of shit about it because we know he's not being completely upfront about it because deep down, it's just that you don't want to say it. You just don't want to say it. You just don't want to admit it.
He would definitely do it. He just doesn't want to admit
I
it.
mean,
You're right.
anybody's going to do it,
Well, next time he joins us, we need to force him to admit that in order to, if he had a disease and the only cure to see his son's graduation was bukkake by unattractive Chinese businessmen, he would absolutely do it.
So,
That's a goal.
well, and I've told the story before, and I'll make it real quick. Everybody's got a price, and it may be life or watching your kid graduate, and it may be money. And this possibly apocryphal, maybe true story of the Union General and his adjutant were in the office on the coast of Georgia, Savannah or somewhere, and he was in charge of the port of Savannah, right? And this very lovely plantation owner widow who with her beautiful 18-year-old daughter came to visit him, and she says, General, uh, I'll offer you 100,000 Yankee dollars, Yankee greenbacks, and the services of my beautiful 18-year-old daughter for as long as you'd like. If you lift the blockade in the port of Savannah, so I can get my cotton to England, because the only way you could get hard currency for your cotton if you were a plantation owner back then was to send it to Europe, send it to England. And the general called his adjutant back in. He goes, send a telegraph to Washington. Tell them I've just been offered a bribe. They're getting very close to my price, and I request an immediate transfer. It's everybody's got a fucking price.
No, everyone's got a price. In Georgia, still, most people will offer the services of their daughter to get what they want. That has not changed in the entire state.
It's good to
sad.
see you, Scott.
Good to see you.
You're like, and I know I make jokes about California, and maybe you're the only Jew in California that isn't part of the whole controlling Hollywood thing, or like an investment.
No, I don't control it. I don't even get residuals for anything. So no, not involved. Hollywood is so through my line of work. I have worked with Hollywood people, and some of them have been cool, but for the most part, you just want to run. They're just like they're weird. They're a weird type, especially actors. Yeah. Odd folks.
Yeah, I learned that in my California days. By the way, everybody life hack: coffee filters make a great napkin. It costs you less than a napkin, by the way. Like if you have even if you have napkins, like the cute little cocktail napkins that like you get at a bar. No matter what kind of napkin you have or paper towel, it's still cheaper to use a coffee filter. So even if
Good
you
to know.
like, even if you're like a bachelor like me who's always running out of shit, like I don't even fucking buy napkins. I buy paper towels, but and I use paper towels for things that you're not supposed to use paper towels for, like never mind. Um,
You would say
cost
wiping your ass. You're gonna wipe your ass with
I
paper towels. That's what you were gonna. That's what
it,
you were about to say.
it's not
That's
what I
what
was
you were
about to
about to
say.
say.
No, it was not, Scott.
Yes. Yes.
You're a liar and a
Gross.
thief.
It's gross. But I'm sorry, I interrupted. You brought up I'm the only Californian Jewish person that doesn't take bribes from Hollywood or something.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
look
that was
at you.
it? Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, other
You're
than
welcome. You're
other than
welcome.
you've got that. When you smile, your teeth look like a row of urinals. I just want to piss in your mouth.
Haven't heard that one before.
I think I stole that one.
Fuck
That
yeah.
might have been a stolen joke.
That is a good one. I'm going to credit it to you.
Okay. What would you say, Scott, is the biggest story in the news today
Mm.
and the last several days? I'm going to give you like 5 seconds to think about it.
It's obviously Iran.
Which is a country in the Middle East.
It's a country in the Middle East. And when all this started happening, I did the same thing I did when the October 7th incident happened. I pulled up Google Maps and I zoomed in on the fucking country and looked around intricately at the whole thing to try to familiarize myself because most people run their mouths. You know about this shit, right? But average motherfuckers don't. They just start spitting their dumbass opinions and they never stop to think about things from first principles. Me, I'm zooming in on a map. I didn't know where the Strait of Hormuz was, but now I do because I zoomed in on a map. And once you do that, things become crystal clear.
And you may not have had the kind of textual reference that showed you how big of a country it is, landmass
It is big.
wise, right?
It is big.
It's
And also
huge.
10 times the population of Israel, by the way. Or maybe a little less than 10 times, actually. Because 15 million versus like 90 or 100 million, right? Or
Yeah,
10 million versus 90 or 100 million.
I would just want and there'll be a lot of these replies to like I'm just gonna go off in a minute probably, but
Of
like what
course.
you mentioned about people not people thinking that they know a lot, so the first thing you did was like look up something basic. I think like of all the things I saw this week were all the communists and all the Marxists all on the side of the Iranian Revolution, the Iranian regime, who the regime, and because they've never read a book or an essay, because they have no historical, I'm talking about online communists now. I'm sure probably somewhere there's a communist professor, although I did catch one. I did see one that didn't know it, who's read enough to know that. So when the regime took over in 1979, they executed and imprisoned all the communists and outlawed the Communist Party. Yeah, so you have all these online communists and Marxists, against America for the Iranian regime, and I wouldn't care if they were against the, involvement. They could say it's a bad idea. They don't support the war. That's all fine and good. That's all you know. That's reasonable thinking. But
Yeah.
because you're so fucking stupid, because you're so fucking historically illiterate, that you're literally supporting a regime that executed and imprisoned and outlawed the political party that you support or belong to. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's like slaves voting for Jefferson Davis and the Confederacy. It's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, you
The,
fucking idiots.
uh, am I right that the communists were actually originally part of the revolution? Like the commies were big in like 1978 Iran, right? They were a big part of it, and they were part of the revolution, and it just kind of splintered. Am I remembering right?
That gets very nuanced and complicated. Mossadegh was a communist who was elected in
Mm.
'53 and overthrown by the CIA, and the Shah came in And you can talk about how prosperous Iran was, and had diplomatic relations with Israel and got along. It was a world player, an advanced country. But yeah, there probably were some communist revolutionaries in Iran prior to the current regime
But
shooting
they
their
would
way.
also, it would be kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, yeah,
Everybody
I
wanted
mean,
to overthrow the Shah.
the current regime shot its way into power, and then they killed them all,
Yeah.
or either executed or put them in prison,
Yeah,
right?
as authoritarian regimes tend to do.
Well, and it's literally no different than I mean, the Bolshevik Revolution. I very often tell the very online left, communists, Marxists, etc. The funniest thing ever is that you literally don't know that if you ever get your little Marxist revolution, you're going to be the first ones that get lined up against the wall,
Yeah.
right? Because you were just there proselytizing for it. You weren't actually doing anything, right? So you got on Facebook, you got on Twitter, right? But you weren't out. You weren't part of a revolution, right? And you're never going to be a part of those. Like you're not actually going to be carrying a gun and killing people as part of your little revolution. You're just going to be talking about it online, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, and then if it ever comes around and there ever is you ever do get your little Marxist revolution, you're the first ones that are getting lined up against the wall, just like the Bolsheviks did, just like Mao did, on and on and on through history.
Is there a word for online wannabe playtime revolutionaries? I feel like there's got to be a word for that.
I mean, yeah, I call them wannabe apparatchiks. And I will often remind them that you call yourself peaceful, right? Like, you want peace and love in the world, and, you know, you want, you want the workers to own the means of production, blah, blah, blah. You've got this image of communism as being this utopia that's never happened, and it's not going to happen, right? And that Karl Marx was a great writer, and he contributed a lot to society. Karl Marx was literally a societal parasite, by the way, who lived off other people's money, which more often than not are the online leftists. That's exactly what they fucking want. Like they want to
Yeah.
live off somebody else's fucking money and do nothing, which is
Yeah, Karl Marx, wasn't he a spoiled rich kid? He
he
never really
literally
worked.
lived
He
off Engels' money for 40 years. Debt, debts, food, lodging, everything. I was arguing with somebody in a newsroom about a week ago. Not arguing, we're having a conversation, and she literally said, "But well, he only used Marx to get his works published." And I'm like, "No, dude, open a book. Like, read something other than whatever's filling your narrative, right?
yeah.
Go do something other than scroll through TikTok or read what you think sounds good, on whatever social media platform is your preference. Like actually read something, actually learn something.
Amen.
It's mind blowing. There's something else I want to say,
Yeah.
and this has nothing
Oh,
to
there's
do
a
with
lot
cheat.
you want to say.
This has nothing to do with Cheeto. I mean, it does and it doesn't. And I've said here before, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm becoming almost by the day saying to myself, "Well, I wish I had voted for him." A lot of very smart people in the United States and Israel have watched this, have long witnessed this very destructive continued rise of Islamism, political Islam, not the Muslim faith, not Muslims, political Islam. If you don't know what the difference is, fucking look it up. I'm not, you're holding a magic box in your hand. I'm not your fucking professor. Look at the fuck up. I've long witnessed this very destructive rise of influence in the Western world of political Islam and communist China. And some very wise descendants of Judeo Christians who were the very people that gifted us the Enlightenment, Western civilization, have decided that that we need to halt that trend. And not so much me, but people that are younger than me, the sons and daughters of friends of mine, these very smart people. By the way, Marco Rubio is one of them, and he's the most influential member of the current cabinet. And again, not about Cheeto. I'll get to that in a moment. These very smart people aren't asking to be paid a debt that future generations are are going to owe them. But we should profoundly hope they succeed, because this is not two scorpions in a bottle any more than the Soviet Union and the United States in the Cold War was two scorpions in a bottle. It's good versus evil. And if anybody wants to question whether or not there's been a dramatic increase in influence in the Western world of Islamism and political Islam, look it up. I didn't make that up. It's axiomatically true, number one. Number two, the increase of influence of Marxist ideology in the Western world, particularly in certain countries in Europe, Britain, and the United States. Am I wrong?
There's a huge difference between a just a normal Muslim living their lives and political Islam for sure. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, anybody that's ever met a Muslim and watched the news knows that. I've met Muslims that are some of the coolest people I've ever met in my entire life.
Political Islam would have me executed for this.
Yeah, exactly. Political Islam would say, if you're gay, I'm going to throw you off this roof. That's real. That's a real thing. That's a real thing they do, by the way. That's not made up. I used to think that was bullshit when I was younger. I'm like, this is obviously propaganda. There's no way that this actually happens. No, it actually happens. It's actually real. And the cold part of it, and I'm not sure about this, but I heard it and I accepted it as truth, is a lot of times when these guys, these political Islamists, throw a gay guy off of a roof, they have a smile on their face, and because they actually think they are helping this man that they're throwing off of the roof. They actually think they are saving him. I heard that story and I'm like, this is so fucking insane. I believed it. The source had me believing it at the time. It's crazy.
I saw a woman get beheaded in an Islamic country for the crime of being raped.
Jesus Christ.
You don't want, nobody wants, and I work. Okay, so I have two jobs. I'm a contract editor. I have my own business, and then I have a job with a corporation in a large office facility, a very, very extremely large
You
office facility with
you
lots.
also do you consider the prostitution a third job, or you give it away for free so much to dudes that
We weren't going to
it's not
talk
actually
about
a
that.
job? Okay, got it. Sorry.
Let me just quote the. Let me just quote a gentleman named Samir in Saudi Arabia on my first visit when I asked him about the grown men and the 18-year-old boys that they walk around with, when I thought that they were clad like this, pinky to pinky, and I thought that it was the father and the son. And I found out, no, that's not what it is. Leave it to everyone's imagination what it actually is. And I said, but homosexuality is against your religion. And his answer to me was, yes, but we don't talk about. So we're not going to talk about that, Scott.
I watched an interview with a soldier in Afghanistan who was talking about police chiefs in Afghanistan having basically boy sex slaves.
The Bocce
And
Boys.
this is another one of those things. I'm like, this can't be real. This
The Bocce
can't be
Boys.
real. Turns out it's because it sounds so made up to be propaganda, right? It sounds like Islamophobic propaganda. It doesn't it? Like if you don't know
It's so
anything,
bizarre.
you would
It's
just
so out
assume it
there.
was propaganda and not real. That's my natural instinct.
No,
Is,
yeah,
this is not real.
it's literally so incomprehensible, so unfathomable, so out there. You know, it's it's galaxies away from what we can in our daily lives think of as anything that could happen, much less be normalized in a society.
And I also want to throat clear. These are not the Muslims that you meet down at the mall in fucking Los Angeles, right? These are normal people that you meet in Los Angeles. This is fundamentalist Islam in the Middle East.
Correct.
It's a world of difference.
And the fact that we have to keep reiterating that, fine. We should,
Yeah. Because
because
idiots and the ignorant
lest
won't get it.
yeah, because lest we be misinterpreted as you're just going after a certain religion. No, we are fucking not.
If Christians were doing this, we'd be the first ones to say these fucking Christians that are doing this and need to be stopped is fucking evil. If Jews were doing it, we'd say the same fucking thing. And there are Christians and Jews doing evil shit too. They don't run entire fucking countries where they're saying, okay, you can just go ahead and do shit. But I don't know, man. Have you read the Epstein files?
In the United States, in certain states, Florida being one of them, if you rape a 12-year-old child, you're going to get the death penalty if you're convicted. Now, I don't know how many appeals they allow, but if you rape a 12-year-old child, which, by the way, I read a fucking headline on today about a grown man raped a child and he got like 3 years in prison. It was 12 years old. Yes, it was in it was in one of those stupid European countries. And I say this as a person born on the continent of Europe. I think it was in Belgium. I could be wrong,
Oh,
right?
that's even
But
worse than
it was in a
France.
European country where they were like, well, got to give him a second chance. What the fuck ever. But in Florida, and I'm pretty sure anybody that commits child rape of a 12-year-old or younger gets the fucking death penalty,
Oh.
which I am fine with.
Yeah, you have to be so fucked up to do a thing like that that the world's better off with you not being there.
Like, obviously, in a state that would like execute a child rapist, like, even if they weren't allowed to impose a death penalty, would obviously give that person life in prison with no chance of parole.
Yeah,
Like, they would never get out of jail.
yeah,
And like, okay, like at least everyone ought to be able to agree on that. Like, okay, well, so you're against the death penalty, fine. But a person who does that should at least what? At least what? Life in prison with no chance of parole ever for any reason.
yeah. I agree 100%. I would love to have a deep dive conversation about actual prison reform with you because there's some things I think that really need to be done that are really interesting to talk about. Let's pencil that in for another time because I'd have to brush up.
That's a really good
But
idea. So I know
yeah, I just
somebody.
want to say real quick though,
Yeah,
the Iran bombing memes are absolute fire. So no matter what you feel about this, I haven't made up my mind, but there are some very convincing people that say that the bombing of Iran should not be happening, and I'm just trying to understand it. And I realize that there is no such thing as easy or good foreign policy. It just doesn't exist. It's always trade offs and it's always shit. But anyways, the memes are absolutely great. If you haven't seen the Donald Trump Duran video, it's amazing. I'll send it to you.
I'm going to list what the Iranian regime has been doing for half a century, for 47 years. In 1979, Iranian students backed by the regime seized the American embassy in Tehran. They took 66 Americans hostage for 444 days. In April 1983, the Islamic Jihad, an Iran backed terrorist group, carried out a suicide bombing at the United States Embassy in Beirut, and they killed 17 Americans. In October 1983, Iran backed Hezbollah terrorists who, by the way, are getting expelled from from Lebanon after all these years. And fucking look that up too. Hezbollah has been the most influential political and military influencer. They held cabinet positions in parliament, etc., for 30 fucking years. In October '83, Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists killed 241 Marines, um, 241 military personnel, 220 of whom were Marines. 21 service personnel and 21 other service personnel in a truck bombing. In 1984, Iran-backed Islamic Jihad terrorists kidnapped CIA Station Chief William Buckley on his way to work in Beirut, ultimately torturing him and killing him. I I was in the White House. I have seen the intelligence reports that we got back on what they did to William Buckley. And you don't want to ever see anything like that. Trust me. September 1984, Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists killed 23 innocent people, including 2 American service members, in a car bomb attack at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. December 1984, Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists hijacked Kuwait Airways Flight 221 en route to Pakistan, diverting it to Tehran, where they brutally tortured and killed 2 Americans. June 85, Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists hijacked TWA Flight 847 on its way to Athens, from Athens to Rome, torturing a U.S. Navy diver before shooting him at point-blank range in the head and tossing his body onto the Beirut airport tarmac. July 1989, Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists killed U.S. Marine Colonel William Higgins after kidnapping him the previous year while serving with a United Nations peacekeeping force in Lebanon. April 1995, Iran-backed Islamic terrorists killed 8 people, including 1 American citizen, in a car bomb attack in the Gaza Strip. August 1995, an Iran-backed Hamas suicide bomber blew up a bus in Jerusalem, killing an American, 3 other passengers, and wounding more than 100 people. February 1996, an Iran-backed Hamas suicide bomber blew up another bus in Jerusalem, killing 3 Americans and wounding 3 other Americans. March 1996, a suicide bomber linked to the Iran-backed Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist group killed 20 people, including 2 Americans, in a suicide bombing at the Tel Aviv shopping center. May 1996, Iran-backed terrorists killed an American-Israeli dual citizen, and wounded another American citizen in the West Bank. The list goes on and on and on. It would take another 10 minutes to finish that list. So the narrative of we started this war with Iran. No, we fucking didn't. They've been at war with us for 47 years. I have something I want to say to members of the elected members of the Democratic Party. Hakeem Jeffries, who said we were going to lose. That's a quote. We are going to lose. You were aiding and abetting the enemy. You were aiding and abetting, and you're shitting on the memory of every one of the people that I just mentioned that got killed by Iran-backed terrorists. I want to say something to the online left, who think that there's no end game to this war. It's an unnecessary war. It's an illegal war. It's an unconstitutional war. Please, I'm begging you to read Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, which is the President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy. No, you do not need a declaration of war to make war. If that were true, then we wouldn't have been in Korea. We wouldn't have been in every military operation we've conducted up to today. That includes Reagan taking back Grenada from this thug, I forget his name, Major Yabba Dabba Doo, and they also took 1,000 American medical students hostage. It includes Libya, it includes Syria, it includes the Gulf War, it includes the Iraq War, it includes the Iran War, it includes every fucking war, period. And also, by the way, well, it's illegal because of the War Powers Act. You don't know what the War Powers Act says. What the War Powers Act says.
It seems like you're getting into legal technicalities, but it seemed like you started off wanting to make like a strong point to the Democratic and online left about why the war should happen. Could you narrow that
you
down
got me back, on track. Yeah. So, no, it's not an illegal war. It's not an unconstitutional war. Please read the War Powers Act. Please read the Constitution.
Now, there are very smart, reasonable people that believe that Iran is just as evil as you said. that think that the attack shouldn't have happened. I think the most reasonable case is people that are kind of generally against executive power and are for reeling that in and increasing powers of Congress for, original constitutional reasons, balancing of power reasons. The executive branch has gone too far. They're sick of the ping ponging back of executive orders back and forth every time there's a new president. I'm kind of one of those people. I want to see Congress do their jobs. But like I said, I haven't made up my mind on the Iranian attacks
What
yet.
would spark you say to one of those people? You want me to tell you?
What would you say?
I would say if you, Scott, or any of them, and since, for example, I know you well enough to know that you were skeptical at this time period, so I'm going to exempt you. So if you were one of the people who said nothing when President Obama spent 7 months in Libya,
Hmm.
then
You're being a hypocrite.
take your
Yeah.
gigantic hypocrisy and go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So the president has, so the declare war and make war thing, there's two different things. It's two different things. The War Powers Act says you have to notify Congress ahead of time, which Cheeto did. He called in the Gang of Eight and told them what he was going to do. And you have 45 days initially and then 60 days. So you have to go back to Congress and make your justification, etc. Um, we're 9 days into this, I think. This is day 9. And I know it seems like forever because we're saturated 24/7 with war, like it seems longer than 9 days because of the environment we live in. But I had to tell a colleague at work, um, and they said, well, my problem is this war is unconstitutional. And I said, why do you believe that? Because Congress hasn't declared war. I said, Congress didn't declare war in Korea. Congress didn't declare war in Vietnam. Congress
Yeah.
didn't declare war in the Gulf War. Congress didn't declare war in Iraq. They didn't declare war in Afghanistan. They didn't declare war in Syria. They didn't declare
They
war.
haven't declared war since World War II. Is that correct?
Correct. And the presidential power to make war and, for example, Congress could declare war against Fuckistan tomorrow, and the president wouldn't have to go to war against Fuckistan.
Would you?
You know why? Because he's the commander in chief. Because of Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1.
Are you sympathetic? Like, if we put Iran aside, are you sympathetic with we need to reel back executive power, and we need to have more of a balance? We need to have Congress work again. Do you
I
think
would
that's a
say,
fair thing to do?
I would say, have that conversation when this is over. I would say have that conversation. Like that's
Yeah,
not the conversation.
that's fine.
That's not
But
the conversation to have now. And no, actually, no, Scott. I'm all for conversations, right? It's kind of like, but in a way, I kind of think you're beating a dead horse here. In a way, I think it's like, all right, it's like saying we need to have a conversation about racism. We need to have a conversation about gay rights. We've had all these conversations. All these conversations have been taking place for ages, right? No, I don't think. No.
But this is still a problem, would you not say? And then maybe if the answers to it are complex and are going to take forever, like I, for one, think that step one needs to be you need to be able to get rid of your student loan debt when you declare bankruptcy. I think that simple step is going to result in banks that lend out loans to students having to make sure that their majors are relevant. It's going to result in colleges actually having to conform to market demands and get rid of a lot of commie bullshit. And then hopefully in 20 years, kids won't be as stupid. I think that's step one towards all of this nonsense, but it's so
and I could
far down the
and I
road.
couldn't agree with you more. And maybe it's because and I don't want to brag here. I I I I, I read a lot. I know a lot about national security things. I read a lot. I'm in a job where I have 3 um, open source intelligence briefings 24/7. Like it's on the fucking like I can't go into it any more than that. So And since I can't go into it any more than that, I want to tell you this. The negotiators for the people that were negotiating with the Iranians before hostilities commenced, and he went public with it the other day, and it was shocking. In their first meeting, and I believe it was in Qatar, and it was he and another. It was Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And in the very first meeting, the very first thing that the two Iranians said to them was, "We have 4,600 grams. I think it's 4,600. We have 4,600 grams of 60% enriched uranium, which is enough to make 11 bombs." They used a word. They said that they had the inalienable right to possess it.
Hmm.
And Witkoff looked at Kushner and said, "We're kind of fucked here. We're basically fucked." That's not a negotiable position. You don't let a rogue regime that's been sponsoring terrorism for 47 years all around the world have 60% enriched uranium, which only takes about 4 or 5 days to get to 90%, which is, you're talking about fissionable material, and let them keep it.
Can't you make a dirtied bomb with even
Yeah,
less
they
than
can, and that was the
90%?
other
It's like
problem. That was the
60%
other
or
problem.
something.
They were literally thinking about, because when we destroyed the Fodor plant a couple of months ago, and then the other one, the name escapes me, the Adzir plant, the B-1 strikes that Trump did, a couple of months ago, destroying their nuclear facilities. That's where they shifted to, well, we're kind of fucked here for a while because we can't rebuild this right away, and for a long time we're not going to be able to rebuild it. So maybe we should look at making this using the uranium we have and turning it into dirty bombs. I want to be very clear about this. The Iranian, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and the Iranian leadership not only believed they had an inalienable right to have nuclear weapons and develop them and keep the enriched uranium that they have
It's
and never give it
Islamic
up.
Revolutionary Guard. Sorry, just had to.
Well, that's true, yes. I call it the Iranian Revolutionary Guard for.
I just learned that the other day. I don't know. I
Uh,
don't know. I'm not an expert.
I'm
Like I
I'm
said, I
using,
look shit up as soon as I think I need to know it. That's it.
but I stand, rightfully corrected. Here's what the Iranians were doing. They had developed so many long-range missiles and launchers and mid-range missiles and launchers that they were quickly approaching the point of, and Rubio made this point very succinctly. They were reaching the point of immunity, where you see, you have to understand that um, interceptors cost way more to build. They're way more sophisticated to build and way more expensive to build than conventional bombs or Tomahawk missiles or cruise missiles, or what we are systematically destroying those weapon systems with.
I think
That
it's 10x more expensive, if I
it
remember
truly
right.
is. And so what they were shooting for was a window of immunity where they would be able to say, guys, yeah, we are enriching this. We are going to enrich this uranium to 90% and build a nuclear weapon, and there's nothing you can do about it because um, you can shoot everything you've got at us, right? And we're going to shoot everything we've got at you and Israel and the 12 countries that they've shot at. By the way, they pissed off all the Gulf states, and you're not going to have enough interceptors.
Hmm.
You're not going to have enough interceptors. We're going to be able to do enough. The damage that we will be able to inflict will prevent you from doing anything about it. And that was one of the reasons why, and I believe the biggest reason why this national security team chose to act when it did. It's a combination of that, and the Israelis had a clean. They had a clean window of opportunity to decapitate the leadership, kill the Ayatollah, etc. and the U.S. NatSec team and Cheetos said, well, you guys are doing that, and guess what? Um, simultaneous, simultaneously, in all these negotiations we had, the Iranians, they've just told us that they're not going to give up their enriched material. They're never giving it up. They have enough to make 11 bombs. It's not going to take them that long, and they're shielding. They're very close to be able to shielding themselves, immunizing themselves from any military intervention whatsoever, because the damage they'll be able to inflict on the region will be catastrophic.
Can I do the thing where I try to summarize your argument and your responses to my pushbacks or queries
Yeah, because we're
in a
43 minutes in,
succinct?
so
Okay, all right. So let me see if I got this right. It's strategically this needed to be done because of reasons that you eloquently put out. You seem to respect that Congress needs to do more of its job and be more active, but we simply just don't have time for this right now because a dirty bomb or a nuclear bomb going off in the United States or its allies is just far too important to
completely
avoid that.
unacceptable.
Completely unacceptable to have
And let me
happening.
just interrupt you at one point. More to the point with Congress, I want them to stop doing this shit where they're talking about we're going to lose, it's an illegal war, it's an unconstitutional war, etc. And I'm not going to use the trite term back the troops. We don't have any troops in Iran. There are no ground troops there. We have the Air Force there, the Navy there. That's who we've got close to there, and that's who is systematically destroying their missile systems, their drone systems, the enrichment thing. Yeah, that's gone. We haven't got word on that yet, but I guarantee you that's
Would,
fucking gone. Right?
would you
Go
agree
ahead.
with maybe not even calling it a war? It's just an aerial and sea based attack, right? We've done this
Yeah, I agree.
before.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you something else. Calling it a war. You know, Cheetah called it a war the other day, and he came under a lot of fire for calling it a war because, some senator or some cabinet member said, well, this military operation is like, well, Cheeto, called it a war, so it's a war.
Yeah, because he's going to be a TV host every time he talks,
the
and we
the
can't
left
avoid
is,
it.
I'm telling you, the left is desperately afraid, right? Anybody who anybody who hates Trump, and Democrats in Congress, pundits, CNN, etc. The list is very long. Like, everybody knows, there's a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump. They hate his guts. They don't think he should have ever been president. They don't want him to be president now. They want him impeached, right? And leaving aside all of that, we're I believe, and we're going to find out real soon. This is going to be a war that we won.
Attack.
It's going to be an attack that we won, and they don't want him to have that. We lost in Vietnam. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. We spent 20 years in these wars. We lost in Libya. We've lost. The only thing that comes remotely close to a win was the Gulf War, and essentially we lost that because we didn't remove Saddam Hussein at the time, so we ended up believing that we had to deal with him later, and then that fucking war lasted 20 fucking years and cost us $3 trillion.
Do you think there'd be a lot of utility in just removing Donald Trump from this conversation entirely, basically, and just saying, X is president, like, let's forget about his tweets, everything, because that really clouds the water. There's a lot of really legitimate reasons to
It
dislike
really
him.
does, and I honestly believe that a very experienced, that a really good national security foreign policy team, basically headed up by Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, Hegseth, etc., the national security advisor, um, whose name escapes me. Oh, that's right. Marco Rubio is the national security advisor. I believe they went to Donald Trump and said, I don't think, yeah, I, I don't believe Cheeto wanted to do this. I really don't.
A
His
lot of really smart people think that Israel said, we're going to do this and we need to do this now, and we're going to do this with or without you. Do you think there's any truth to that, and America just had to go along with it, or do you think that's a conspiracy?
There, well, it is good. Yeah, they've turned it into a conspiracy theory. The perpetually online left is saying, they're doing the whole thing where uh, you know, America is owned by Israel, and the Jews control the American government.
People go way
So
too far with that, but it seems plausible that Israel could say, "We're going to attack. We need to do it now. We need you guys to help us."
I think I
That,
explained the
that's
perfect. I think I explained the perfect storm that came together here, though.
Yeah, I
Right? So
think
you
so.
had,
So you're
yeah,
saying you don't need that to
you
justify
don't
the
need that.
attack?
No, you don't
It's
need it.
not really
And
relevant.
no, and again, I think I explained the perfect storm, which is we've been negotiating with the Iranians for a long time. Cheeto has been to his credit, has had Witkoff and Kushner and other people negotiating with the Iranians, begging them, trying to get them to make a deal where they give up their uranium, their their commitment to make a nuclear, their pledge, there's religiously sworn pledge, because they're religious fanatics, to make a nuclear weapon or build a dirty bomb and keep attacking its neighbors and keep funding Hezbollah and keep funding Hamas.
Yeah.
We had the protests all through the entire month of February. They killed somewhere between 20 and 36,000 people. All of this sort of came to a head all at once. I um, we don't know yet why the Israelis decided on their part that they were going to kill Khomeini the day that they did. But I couldn't ask for a better ally than Israel. Um, uh, that
They are competent. Say what you will about them, but they are an extremely competent country.
you couldn't possibly ask for a better ally. You literally could not. They've got the space lasers knocking down drones
They control everything. They
and
literally control the
missiles.
world. There's only 10
They
million of them.
literally got the space lasers working, right?
They do have the space lasers working. I forgot
They
about
do.
that.
They got the fucking
Actually,
space.
they're actually ground based lasers, though, but close enough. Close enough.
I one of them. They have one of them. That maybe it was us that have the space lasers. It like goes up like over the satellite or something, and it's like an intercontinental ballistic laser.
That's
And
fucking
all of
wild.
this, of course, the world, our adversaries across the world, and as I mentioned earlier, the influence of China and Russia. Um, uh, the
Yeah, like if we
Chinese.
want to talk about the realpolitik of the big three countries, fuck, dude, that's a
That's a
whole.
whole other. That's a whole
Jesus.
other. That's a whole other.
All right, one last question to end
Yeah.
this. Can we talk about something fun next time? Is that a no?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you hear my,
Last question. Go.
you didn't hear my question. I said, last question. Can we talk about something fun next time?
You mean like when you smile, your teeth look like a row of urinals, and that's why I
Yeah,
want
let's
to
talk about it. That
piss in
works.
your mouth?
Let's talk about more pissing in each other's mouths. Sold. All right, man. Keep your head up.